Maseches Nedarim Daf Tesvav discusses a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav and Rav Nachman. The Gemara is going to spend most of the daf bringing proofs to either side, mostly against Rav Yehuda. Towards the end of the daf, the Gemara will discuss the last line in our Mishnah as to whether a man has the right to aser tashmish on his wife. And then we will end just before our next Mishnah. So the Gemara is discussing machlokes about a conditional neder. Someone makes a neder al tanai, that if the certain condition is fulfilled, then the neder takes effect and he's obligated by the terms of the neder. Now, the way we have it set up here is that there are 2 days involved, today and tomorrow. And let's say he wants to say he's not going to sleep. So one of the days is the day in which if he doesn't sleep that day, then there's no neder. If he sleeps the day, then the neder takes effect. The other day, he's not allowed to sleep that day. Question is, which day is the day of the condition, and which day is the day of the neder, where it's usher? Meaning, he definitely can't sleep both of the days. One of the days, if he sleeps that day, that means that he has a neder on the other day. If he sleeps the other day, he violates the neder. Question is, which is which? So, in the case where today is the tanai and tomorrow is the neder, that's if he says, he says, if I sleep today, then I'm under a neder that I'm not allowed to sleep tomorrow. There, everyone agrees, Rav Nachman and Rav Yehuda Rav agree that he's allowed to do that. And just tomorrow, he has to make sure not to sleep. Tomorrow, he has an answer to sleep. We don't say, don't fulfill the tanai today because you may break the neder tomorrow. We assume the person knows he has a neder on him, he'll keep the neder. The question is what happens the opposite way, where he says, if I sleep tomorrow, then I'm not allowed to sleep today. So now, today he has to deal with first, is he allowed to sleep today? Assuming that he's not going to sleep tomorrow, and therefore the condition won't be made, and the neder won't be made, and the fact that he slept today doesn't violate anything? Or do we say, no, you better not sleep today because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow? So that's the machlokes between Rav Nachman and Rav Yehuda Rav. Rav Nachman says he could do whatever he wants. He could sleep today. He just has to make sure not to sleep tomorrow and to not fulfill the condition, and therefore retroactively what he slept today is not a violation of the neder because the neder never took effect. Rav Yehuda Rav says, no, not so fast. We're afraid people aren't going to keep it tonight. Once there's no isser on them, there's only a tanai on them, they have to make sure not to sleep so that they don't end up fulfilling a tanai, which is going to make a neder bichal, and now they slept already today, so they have a problem that they're not going to stick to. And therefore we tell the guy, don't sleep today because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You may end up sleeping and then you'll fulfill the condition, therefore make sure you don't violate it. So the Gemara is going to try to bring a number of proofs that we don't say this concept. We don't say you're not allowed to sleep today because you may end up fulfilling the tanai tomorrow. So the Gemara's first proof is from our last Mishnah, and the Mishnah had a case. We're going to have 5 attempts to figure out what the case is. When we finally figure out what the case is, then we'll figure out that it's a proof to this issue. So what's the case over there? The case is where somebody says, somebody says, I make a neder, I'm not going to sleep, I'm not going to walk, I'm not going to speak. So the Gemara has to figure out the case. So the Gemara has, we have to have a case in which this is a valid neder and in which it's a chiddush. So the Gemara says, okay, our first option is to say that he's making a literal neder, I'm not going to sleep. Let's choose, sleep is the example the Gemara chooses to focus on. So he's literally saying, I'm not going to sleep. Okay, that would be a chiddush because we would have thought that you can only make a neder on something which is an actual physical entity. You can't make a neder on a verb, on an action. So the Gemara says, I'll be a chiddush, at least, that it's telling me that you could make an neder on an action. So the Gemara says, but the problem is that you can't. And therefore, that can't be what it means to say. We know that because you have a Mishnah that says that you can only make a shvuah. You can only swear on a verb because swearing goes on the person. The person could say, I'm not going to do something. You can't swear on an action. You can't forbid an action. You can only forbid an object. So therefore, that can't be the case. The case has to be where he said, I forbid my eyes from sleeping. I mean, isser on my eyes are not allowed to sleep. So the neder is going on his eyes. Okay, so that makes sense. Now, that could be. But now we have to figure out what exactly is the isser that he made. So, and why is it a chiddush? So how long did he make a neder that his eyes aren't going to sleep? If he made it for a length of time that he could theoretically go without sleeping, let's say for a day, so what's a chiddush? Of course, he made a normal neder on his eyes. We saw that exact example in the previous Mishnah. So what's the chiddush of that Mishnah then? So that can't be the case. If it's talking about where it's too long of a period for him to sleep, for him to go without sleeping. That is, he made a neder that he's not going to sleep for 3 months. Then he's definitely going to violate it. So there, the neder is void. You can't make a neder something that you can't keep. We know that because Rav Yochanan says that if somebody makes a shvua that he's not going to sleep for an extended period of time that he can't possibly keep, the shvua is definitely false, and therefore we give him malchus for swearing falsely right away. And now he can go to sleep whenever he wants because he already got the malchus, he already got the punishment for swearing falsely. He doesn't have to worry about breaking the shvua. So therefore, now you don't get a punishment for making a neder falsely. There's no such thing as a false neder. You get punished for violating the neder, but this neder is therefore void because you can't make a neder something that you can't do. So that can't be the case. So what then is the case? What is the case? There's a chiddush. It can't be a length of time that he could do. It can't be a length of time that he can't do. So the Gemara says it has to be a case like this, where there's 2 days and one's conditional on the other. Now, which one do you want to say is which? If you say he said that if I sleep today, then it's also for me to sleep tomorrow. So that can't be the case because we know that Rav Nachman and Rav Yehuda both agree that in a case like that, he's allowed to sleep today. He just has to be careful not to sleep tomorrow. The Mishnah, which rules that he's not allowed to sleep tomorrow, is not saying a chiddush. The psak of the Mishnah is harehu b'lo yachal devari. He's under the restriction not to break his word, which means he can't sleep tomorrow. So that's not a chiddush. They both agree that that's a valid neder and it works. So the case must be the case of the machlokes. The case must be where he says, if I sleep tomorrow, I'm not allowed to sleep today. And the Mishnah says he's not allowed to break his word. So the Mishnah is clearly saying he's not allowed to sleep tomorrow. Now, why would he not be allowed to sleep tomorrow? What's the problem? According to Rabbi Yehuda, that is, we tell him he's not allowed to sleep today. If he's not allowed to sleep today, so then he fulfilled the neder. Doesn't matter if the neder takes effect or not. It doesn't matter if he sleeps tomorrow, fulfills the tanai, and helps the neder take effect. So why would we say that he can't sleep tomorrow? Obviously, if we're saying he can't sleep tomorrow, he must have slept today. He slept today. But we thought, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we don't let him sleep today because we're afraid he's not going to block the Tanai tomorrow. So it must be that Rabbi Yehuda is wrong. And we let him sleep today because we know he's going to stick to it tomorrow. And that's why we say that he's not allowed to sleep tomorrow because he did sleep today. So that's Gemara's proof. So Gemara rejects the proof. The Gemara says it could be that we really didn't let him sleep, but he fell asleep. What were we supposed to do? We tried to prevent him. We told him he's not allowed to, but he fell asleep anyway. So now he has an isser to sleep tomorrow. That's Gemara's first answer. Gemara's second answer comes from Ravina. Ravina says that no. We're going to backtrack all the way back to what you said in the beginning, that he made the neder on his eyes. I'll tell you, it's not what happened. He made the neder on sleeping, on the verb, and therefore the neder is not chal. Doiraisa, there's no neder because you can't make a neder on an action. The chiddush of this Mishnah is nothing to do with your case, nothing to do with tanaim, today, tomorrow. The guy said, I'm making neder, I'm not sleeping. And the chiddush is that dirabanon, he's not allowed to sleep. Dirabanon, we say that the neder is chal. He has to stick to it midrabanan. So when we say that he is in Bal Yachel, we mean midrabanan he's not allowed to sleep. So Gemara says, is there such a thing as a Bal Yachel midrabanan? That midrabanan he has to keep the neder which is void deraisa. So Gemara says, yes, there is such a thing. We have a brisa that says that if somebody is in a town where they have a minig to aser something which is mutter, they have a minig to aser it. So you're not allowed to be matrid. You're not allowed to be noig heter. You're not allowed to do that thing in front of them because it says lo yachel devarei. Now that's obviously not deraisa because there's nothing aser about it, but it's derabanan. So you see, there is such a thing as a keep your word midrabanan, a bal yachel midrabanan. This is the same kind of thing. This is also something where you made a minig iser on something which is mutter, and therefore we do see that concept exists. The Gemara's next 2 proofs come from a Mishnah Daf and Zayin, where somebody makes a neder, a conditional neder on his wife, to aser hana, his wife is not allowed to have hana from him. So the first case is as follows. He's standing, let's say it's Hanukkah time, and he says, you are usher to have hana from me until Pesach, if you go to your father's house any time from now till Sukkot. So if you go to your father's house anytime from now till Sukkot, then from now till Pesach there's an Isser Hana. So what's the halacha? So the Mishnah says as follows. If she goes to her father's house until Pesach, so then right away, as soon as she did that, she already fulfilled the condition, and now she has an Isser Hana. So Shitaka is not allowed to have any Hana from him until Pesach, meaning she has to keep the neder. That's the psak of the Mishnah. So the Gemara says clearly then, the only time that she has an Isser Hana is if she goes to her father's house before Pesach. Let's say she doesn't go to her father's house before Pesach. So she have to keep the Isser Hana because she may go to her father's house between Pesach and Sukkot? Obviously not. So you see, you don't tell her that she better keep the Tanai now. She better keep the neder now because she may come to fulfill the Tanai later, and therefore the neder will apply. We don't ask her to have enough from her husband now because she may end up going to her father's house later. So you see against Rabbi Yehuda. So Gemara answers, no. What it means to say is that if she goes to her father's house now until Pesach, now we know she has an Isser Hana. So then if she has an Isser Hana and it's Aser, and she'll even get Malkus if she does it. That's what we mean to say. Now it's Aser and it's Mamash when she's Malkus. If she doesn't go to her father's house until Pesach, so then for that entire stretch, there's no Isser Malkus. Because we don't know if she's going to end up ever having an Isser Hana during that time later. It depends what happens after Pesach. However, she definitely shouldn't have Hana because it may end up, it's like Rabbi Yehuda says, we're concerned that she's going to end up going to her father's house, and therefore we tell her, even now, don't have any Hana. Says the Gemara, but hold on, what are you going to do in the next line of the Mishnah? The next line of the Mishnah says that after Pesach, she shouldn't go to her father's house. The Gemara is assuming this is an independent case, and the Mishnah is passing she's not allowed to go to her father's house. Why not? Obviously, we're talking about where she must have had Hana from her husband until from Hanukkah to Pesach, and therefore, if she'll go to her father's house, she'll end up retroactively making the neder in force, and comes out that the Hana that she had till Pesach was a violation. But how was she allowed to have Hana from now to Pesach? Rabbi Yehuda holds she's not allowed to have Hana till Pesach. So why do we say that she shouldn't go to her father's house? How are we allowed to let her have Hana? So the Gemara says, no, we tried to stop her. We told her, like Rabbi Yehuda says, that she should. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Yehuda is exactly making the point that she shouldn't have Hana. But if she did, then she has to make sure that she doesn't go to her father's house until Sukkot, because then the Hana that she had, which we may have tried to prevent her, but she went ahead and she had it, that would become a problem retroactively. The next proof is from the next case in the Mishnah, which is similar, but it's a reversed case. Here he says to her, you have an Isser Hana from now, let's say it's Hanukkah time, from now till Sukkot, on the condition that you go to your father's house from now till Pesach. Meaning, he says to her, don't go to your father's house from now till Pesach, or else you can have an Isser Hana from now till Sukkot. So the Mishnah passes as follows. Let's say if she goes to her father's house from now, let's say right after this, let's say she goes Rosh Chodesh Shvat, she goes to her father's house. So now the neder hits, and now she's usher to have any Hana from her husband till Sukkot, but she could go to her father's house now. Because what's the problem? She already has the neder. Going to her father's house is not going to make the neder any stronger. It's not going to change anything. The Ran explains the chiddush is, we may have thought that we should put an Isra on her to go to her father's house that'll help her remember that she's under a neder not to have Hana now. The chiddush is we don't say that. She's allowed to go because it's not going to make a difference in her halacha. However, but what the Mishnah did say is that she now has an Isra Hana until Sukkot. The implication is she only has an Isra Hana until Sukkot because she already went to her father's house and the neder was already chal. Let's say she didn't go to her father's house yet. So what's implied is that as long as she didn't go to her father's house, she's allowed to have Hana. It's only once the neder is chal we have a problem. So until she does something, she's allowed to have Hana. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we should ask her. We should say, now have Hana, because we're afraid. Like, why should we allow her to have Hana during Shvat? Maybe she's going to go to her father's house in Adar. So it's the same thing as our case. Why should we allow him to have Hana? Why should we allow him to sleep today? We're afraid he's going to sleep tomorrow. Obviously, we don't say that. We say that you don't have to worry about the neder now, because we're assuming you're going to stick to the Tanai in the future. So it's a raya against Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara gives the same answer as before. This time it's a Rav who says it. He says, no, what we mean to say is that if she goes to her father's house, now she has a full-fledged neder on her. She has an Isser Hana, and if she violates it, she gets Malkus. If she didn't go to her father's house yet, so we prevent her from going. We do tell her not to go, but you don't have a neder on her. You don't have an Isser Hana with Malkus. That level of Isser you don't have. The Gemara now goes to its next proof. This is a 2 proofs in 1, and this is our last attempt. The case here, and this comes from a Tosefta or Brisa, is where he says, this piece of bread is usher on me today if I go to a certain place tomorrow. So the Mishnah paskins that if he ate it, then he has an isser to go tomorrow. So Gemara says, hold on a second, how is he allowed to eat it? According to Rabbi Yehuda, he's not allowed to eat it because we're afraid that he's going to go to the place tomorrow. So what's going on? He should have to not eat it because he may end up doing the Tanai tomorrow. So Gemara says, no, we didn't mean to say that he's allowed to eat it. He's not allowed to eat it. Just like Rabbi Yehuda said, he shouldn't do it today. He should make sure to keep the neder today, so he therefore should not eat the bread because he may end up going to the place tomorrow. It doesn't say oichel, he's allowed to eat it today, and he has to make sure not to go tomorrow. It says ochal, if he ate it. And that's exactly what it means to tell you. He shouldn't be eating it today, just like Rabbi Yehuda says. If he did, then he has to make sure not to go to that place tomorrow, or retroactively he'll have made the neder and it's already been violated. Now, the next line in the Mishnah, the Gemara wants to understand as being a different case. The next line says that if he went, then he violates the Isser Bal Yachel. Now, the Gemara says this is not going on the last case. This is a new thing. And it's saying, if he went, he violates Bal Yachal. What's that referring to? It must be referring to where he ate it. So why is the Mishnah coming up with a case where he ate it yesterday, and now if he goes, he violates Bal Yachal? According to Rabbi Yehuda, you shouldn't talk about that case. You should talk about a case which is he did what he's supposed to do, like what Rabbi Yehuda says, that he did not eat it yesterday, and then he's not Bal Yachal. He doesn't have an Isser on him. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says is the correct scenario that he should be doing. So that's what we should be talking about. So Gemara says, no, the reason that we had to talk about this side, and we had to talk about where he ate it, is because this is a continuation of the previous case. The previous case said that, the previous halacha, that is, said that he's not allowed to eat it, but if he does, he has an answer to go. Now we continue saying, if he does go, then he violates Bal Yachal because of what he did. So it really goes together to the first part. It's not meant to be understood separately from the first part. The Gemara now first briefly to the last line in our last Mishnah, where he said to his wife, I make a neder asering tashmish on you, meaning he says, I'm not going to be mishamish. It's also for you to get enough from tashmish with me. So there's an Isser Bal Yachal. She has to keep the neder. She's not allowed to be mishamishim. So the Gemara asks, it's a violation of his mitzvah deraisa. He's obligated deraisa to provide her with hanas tashmish, like it says, share exclusive and also lo yigra. So how could he make a neder to violate an isser? So my answer is he didn't aser her from having tashmish from him. He asered himself from having tashmish from her. That he's allowed to do because it's his own personal hana. He's not obligated to get hana himself. He's allowed to aser hana on himself, and therefore it counts. And a result of that is that she can't be mishamishim because then he'll violate his isser. And we see the same thing the other way. The Gemara refers to the Gemara in Ksubis and further on in the Masechta that if she makes a neder and she asers hana on herself, then he can't be mishamishar because you don't feed a person food which is forbidden to him. She made it also to her. However, were she to aser the hana of her tashmish on him, that doesn't work because she's obligated to be available to him just like he's obligated to be available to her, and therefore it's a violation of the halacha, and she's not allowed to make such a neder at